Hello, welcome to The Point. This is a fairly new program, and we're starting a new format of the program. Just some of the programs are going to be just me speaking on really exciting subjects, and we're going to be talking today about the human eye. Now, God is a miraculous God, as you know. He created you, He created me, He created the whole universe. He chose us before the foundation of the world. And He's got a wonderful future for us. But we can see as we look around the universe, we look around the sky, and everything we see with our eye, which is a miracle of design. But we're going to start with light, because God is light. God is light. And in the Bible, it says at the beginning of Genesis, it says, actually, I'll read it to you. It's in Genesis 1:23. God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. So God created light. God created light. Now, what is light? Well, we're going to show you some photographs, much more interesting than looking at me. So I want to show you what light is. It's actually photons moving in a waveform. That's what light is. So if we can actually see the first slide now, that's what a photon looks like, a subatomic particle. And what you see there is just one single photon, but light is millions and millions of these little photons moving in a waveform from the sun, all those millions of light years away, to us, and we see light. And God has given us this human eye to see everything we see around us, but not one eye, but two eyes, so we can see everything in stereoscopic vision. In other words, three-dimensional vision. And we'll be talking about that. So that's what light is. Light is photons moving in a waveform. Now remember, God is a God of sevens, and this is quite important because, you know, we have 5 physical senses. You're aware of that. We have our eyesight, our hearing, our smell, our taste, and our touch. And that's normally, when I was at medical school, I was taught we have 5 physical senses. But God's a God of sevens. You'll know that if you're a student of the Bible. And also, if you look around the human world, there are 7 days in the week, there's 7 notes in music, 7 colours of the rainbow. Let's have a look at a rainbow now. There are 7 colours in the rainbow. And that actually is the visible spectrum. But actually, light actually consists of lots and lots of different parts of the spectrums, the gamma rays and X-rays and lots of the spectrum which you don't actually see. And only when we get to heaven with our new eyes will we be able to see all the light there is. So we're going to see later how God has given us not just 5 senses, but 7 senses as well. We were talking about that later. Now, it says in the Bible that God has eyes. I'm going to read that to you. It says the eyes, in Psalm 34, it says, "The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and His ears are open to their cry." So guess what? God has got eyes and He's got ears, and we're created in the image of God. I'm not saying He looks exactly like us. I don't quite know exactly what He looks like, but I do know that He's got eyes and ears. So let's start and look at a human eye. Now, our human eye is formed in the womb from a fertilized cell. One single fertilized cell develops into all these different cells in our bodies, our brain cells and our skin cells and our bone cells and our heart cells and our eye cells. But the eye is not simple, it's incredibly complex. And let's see what it says in the Bible about the eye and how amazing it is. In Psalm 139, verse 14, it says, "I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Now, when Jesus is talking about light, He often talks about light not just in a physical form, but in a physical way, but also in a spiritual way. For example, I was going to read to you the opening paragraph of John chapter 1. "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word..." Let me start again. "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God." It's talking about Jesus. "All things were made through Him, and without Him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. So there we have the human eye created by God, a complete miracle of creation. Sorry, but when Jesus is talking about light shines in the darkness, he's talking about spiritual darkness and the light that comes into the spiritual darkness. Now, it says in Psalm 94, he who planted the ear, shall he not hear? He who formed the eye, shall he not see? In Proverbs 20, it says, the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. Now, the eye is absolutely amazing. I'm going to move away from the eye now to the Hubble Space Telescope. Have a look at a Hubble Space Telescope. There we have the Hubble Space Telescope, which gives the most amazing three-dimensional images from outer space. Very, very expensive piece of kit, whizzing up there above the stratosphere, hundreds of miles up in the sky. And it says it sends images, radio waves, down to the NASA, the NASA satellites. Let's see what they look like. The NASA satellites. There we are. That's the NASA satellites. And they process the images from the Hubble Space Telescope and send them to supercomputers. And let's have a look at the Hubble supercomputers. Now that looks a pretty expensive piece of kit there, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you something. The human eye is far, far more sophisticated than the Hubble Space Telescope. And I mean that. It really is far more sophisticated. For example, the Hubble Space Telescope was created in a laboratory. It was created by man. It was assembled. It took them a long time to assemble, a lot of money. But the human eye came from a single cell. It repairs itself. That's one of the problems with the Hubble Space Telescope. It doesn't mend itself. The human eye does. It mends itself. So the human eye is very, very sophisticated. It grows from a single cell, repairs itself, and is tiny by comparison to the Hubble Space Telescope. And actually it scans as well far faster than the Hubble Space Telescope. Let's have another look at how the eye actually moves. It's got lots of little muscles. And I want to show you what those muscles look like. Can you see all those muscles there? There are lots of muscles. You've got two eyes and lots of muscles, and they all move together so that both eyes are concentrating on one thing. But it's actually more complicated than that. In the center of your eye is the fovea, which is the part of the eye which is the highest resolution, if you like. Now, in order to look, I'm looking at a camera right now, and in order to look at a camera, I've got two eyes looking at the camera. What is actually happening is my eyes are scanning the camera so that the fovea, the very sensitive part of the eye, is continually scanning the camera with two eyes. But it's not quite as simple as that, because I might be riding a bicycle, or I might be in a car, in which case I'm moving at 50 miles an hour, and I might be looking at a tree. So I am moving. The tree's not moving, but I might be moving it and looking at another car, moving in a different direction. Do you see the problem? So your eye has to scan when it's moving in a head which is moving and looking at something else which is moving. So it's actually quite complicated. It's doing something very, very sophisticated. It's scanning something continuously, millions of times a minute, but in a way so that the eye is in the orbit, which is in the head, which can very often be moving if you're running or in a car, and often moving in, looking at something which is itself moving. So it's actually very, very complicated. If you think of a tank on a battlefield, the tank is rumbling over the battlefield, all right, and the turret continually, although the tank's moving, the turret continuously points at the target. Well, that's what your eyes do. Very sophisticated. Right, let's move on. Now, the eye is actually basically a camera, but it's actually far more sophisticated than the cameras that you're used to, or even more sophisticated than cameras we've got in this studio. Let's look at a camera now and compare it with an eye. Now a camera's got a, let's see what a camera's got. It's got the body of the camera, the metal of the camera. Of course the eye makes itself, well it doesn't make itself, it's formed from a single cell. It repairs itself and it differentiates into all these different parts of the eye. It's got, first of all, both of them got a lens to accommodate the light. Then it's got an aperture. On the left, the camera on the left's got an aperture or an opening, and the pupil is your aperture. It goes bigger and smaller according to how much light the eye wants to let in. And that's done by the iris, the little muscles in the iris. And so basically that's the structure of the eye. So how does the eye actually work? Can we just move on to the next slide? There you can actually see if you look at the next slide, you can see the inside of the human eye. And you can see that it's got a lens there, which is sort of jelly-like structure. But it gets fatter and thinner, and as it does so, the magnification changes, so it can point the light to the back of the eye, the retina, if we like. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the structure of the eye. It's basically a camera, but a very sophisticated camera. And the back of the eye is the retina. That's the yellow part on that slide at the back there. And the retina is actually a very, very sophisticated nervous system. And in the retina, what happens there is that the light waves are converted into electrical impulses. And we'll be talking about that in a minute. Now, your eye is like your car. You imagine driving around your car. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's snowing, sometimes it's very hot and sunny, and sometimes it's not. And so what your eye has is a pair of windscreen wipers and some jet washers. Well, guess what? Your eye's got the same. Let's have a look at your eye. Your eye's got windscreen wipers. They're called your eyelids, and it's got very, very sophisticated fluid, which you would know as your tears, to lubricate the transparent skin, which you would call your conjunctiva. And the fluid on the eye is continuously moving in a particular direction towards the center of the eye, what's called the inner canthus by your nose. So the glands are here, the lacrimal glands, and this special fluid moves across the surface of the conjunctiva to the inner canthus here, and then drains into your nose down the canal, what's called the canal of Schlemm.